Okay, thank you very much. First of all, I would like to correct my association. I'm not with the International Blue Carbon, whatever it was. I'm with the Center for International Forestry Research, based here in Indonesia, but I'm also a professor at Bogor Agricultural University in West Java, also in Indonesia. So ladies and gentlemen, we'll be having a very exciting session this afternoon. The topic is very clear: our ocean, our climate, and this will be related to the impacts of climate change to the ocean, and very likely also the feedback mechanism of the ocean system itself to the atmosphere. Before I give floor to our respective speaker, who will have 5 minutes each, I will try to set the scene, what we are going to discuss today. And this setting is very much related to my background. As I mentioned earlier, I'm a terrestrial scientist, actually. I'm not an oceanic or maritime or oceanographer, but I've been working a lot in the area of coastal zone, so that's the furthest wet environment I can go. And in fact, this is a very exciting and interesting place to work, because the oceanic or maritime ecosystem meets with the terrestrial ecosystem, and it's very complex system biophysically, but also socio-economically. So with that in mind, I'm trying to relate what is the actions of this conference. I missed one of them, which is the biggest one, is the ocean security or maritime security. But all of this objective or action that are trying to be implemented in this Our Ocean Conference is very much related to the SDGs. This morning's session, we've been listening the SDG bingos, and at least I picked 9 of the 17 which are related to the objective or action to be implemented in this conference. This is my second OOC. I attended the 2 years ago one in Washington, D.C., and the audience is like about this size, and also the theme that was discussed is also related to the same kind of action tried to do. So with regard to the objective of the conference, and if we try to relate that with the SDGs goal, then we the way we try to relate is certainly implemented at national level. Okay, Your Serene Highness, would you like to lead the session?
Thank you, sir.
Please.
Thank you very much. I thought you were leading the session, but I'll do a few opening remarks if you'd like me to. I'm sorry for the confusion, but I was at the seat marked Monaco, so I thought that was appropriate. Anyway, I'm very happy to be here, very happy to be at this session. I think it's very clear that what this conference should be all about. As you know, we had I think a very substantial last Our Ocean Conference in Malta, where 433 tangible and measurable commitments were made, representing a total of 7.2 billion euros, plus the creation of 2.5 million square kilometers of MPAs. But I think we need to do more, and that was very clear in the different speeches that we heard this morning, but also in other side events and other forums this afternoon. And I think it will provide a new opportunity for going further. And the elements that have been brought together for this speak for themselves. So despite the commitments that I've just mentioned, and we're now way beyond that number, and way beyond those numbers, the situation of our ocean, of our global ocean, has not really improved in regards to what climate change is doing to our ocean. As you have undoubtedly noticed, the last few months have been among the most disturbing that we have ever experienced. Deadly fires have ravaged California, Portugal, Spain, Greece, Scandinavia also. Floods have killed hundreds of people in Japan and India and elsewhere. Heat waves have struck Canada. Record temperatures were seen in Oman, Baku in Azerbaijan, Algeria, and even Scotland. And this country has had Indonesia has had its load of catastrophes, not related to climate, but to natural disasters. But all these events, those related to climate change, only foretastes of even greater catastrophes that await us in the future, given that the major greenhouse gas emitting countries are almost all reneging on the commitments made in the Paris Agreement, and some have quite simply and regrettably decided to leave it altogether. So given the accumulation of these events, and in light of these perspectives, the question is still very much alive: is it too late? While our climate system appears well and truly disrupted, while the thresholds below which we hope to keep global warming appear to be slipping out of reach, and while humanity is continuing its mad pace, burning increasing amounts of fossil fuels, is there still time for hope? Is there still time to take action? Today, I think we could provide two answers to these questions: a principled answer and a specific answer. The principled answer is that we can limit these dramas. Of course, it's too late to bring back our climate at pre-industrial levels. It's not too late to avoid things spiraling out of control. Even if we have a choice between 2-degree rise or more, this choice is of vital importance. But this choice exists. To address it, we have a valuable ally, an ally who brings us here today, and that is the ocean. The ocean is, of course, the victim of the effects of climate change and its consequences: rising water levels, acidification, destruction of ecosystems. We are all too familiar with these foes. And the list of damages that we are inflicting on our ocean it grows even longer every day. However, it is more vital than ever that we improve the ways we protect our ocean, as it plays an important role in the fight against climate change. To date, we know that our seas and oceans have absorbed, can absorb 90% of the heat that we have added to the climate system. They can absorb 1/4 of the CO2 that we release into the atmosphere. Without this, we would have already reached levels of temperature that would have rendered our planet uninhabitable. But these essential services provided by the oceans are increasingly threatened by their degradation. This is the reason why the fight against climate change involves doing much more to protect our oceans. And I'm thinking of an example about marine protected areas, which favor the development of species capable of storing carbon and revitalizing the ecosystems, which helps regulate the climate. I'm thinking about the protection of threatened ecosystems such as mangroves, we saw that in the little video, or coral reefs, which play a crucial role in the protection of biodiversity, and thus the capacity, the capacity to buffer climate change, to mitigate also the effects of extreme weather events such as hurricanes or typhoons. I'm also thinking about the way many resources provided by the oceans, starting with marine renewable energies, which may tomorrow make a decisive contribution to the energy transition we need to achieve. This is the reason why the oceans are not only a victim of climate change, they are meant to be a valuable ally for us. There must be a starting point for new balances that we have to build in our world. As the French historian Jules Michelet once wrote, it is by the sea that we begin all true understanding of geography. So to start to write a new geography for our world and to fight efficiently against climate change, this is the challenge of this meeting and probably of meetings that will follow us. But this is one of the major challenges we are facing this century. So with that, I hand the baton back over to my fellow panel members, and I see some friends looking at me in a very stern way, Mr. Figueres, so I don't know if you want to capitalize on that.
Give big applause. Okay, let me continue my setting of the scene. I was talking about the link between climate change and this conference and also the SDG, especially SDG 13, 14, and 15, where the likely interaction of oceanic and terrestrial system will be. So I will call this coastal blue carbon, and that's the place where mankind, men and women, are interacting with the environment and expecting to make use of the resources. But this blue carbon ecosystem, namely mangrove, seagrass meadow, and salt marshes, are the huge storage of carbon on Earth. It's about 3 to 5 times higher than terrestrial ecosystem. So if these ecosystems are well protected, there are ways of mitigating climate change through blue carbon, especially coastal blue carbon. And at the same time, this ecosystem also play a very critical role in protecting the coastal zones and increase the resilience of the ecosystem as well as the community. So in a sense, it is adapting very well with the changing climate, especially sea level rise. Ecosystem in the coastal zone or blue carbon ecosystem offer huge and numerous amount of services, including this specific situation in Honduras that we found very critical to maintain and keep the mangrove ecosystem in order to provide a stopping point for these migratory species to be able to survive. We cannot imagine if these species do not have ecosystem on the way from north to the south in different seasons. And at the same time, local community can make use of the presence of this unique creature as attraction for ecotourism. Here in my own country, in Indonesia, the British monkey is very unique, and they adapt very well with the mangrove and wetland in the coastal zone. And certainly they are very attractive for ecotourism, and monetizing ecosystem services is not yet done properly in order to explore the possibility of blue carbon for economic development. But conserving blue carbon ecosystem and promoting ecotourism should go hand in hand. Local community also enjoy the wealth of the coastal zone and the health of the ocean when they are able to harvest mud crab regularly, and it's got a very good market. In Costa Rica, in Palau, a family can earn between $500 to $800 a year from the mud crab raising and catching. Certainly, a healthy ocean will be a good asset for ecotourism, and it is very much related to how the coastal zone is maintained. In the SDG 14, target 14.2, a large number of coastal ecosystems should be protected by 2020. But I don't think we reached that number yet. So it is a challenge for this kind of community to be aware about these challenges and also the possibility of raising the awareness in the coastal zone. Healthy coastal zone is also important for the livelihood of people, because coastal zone, healthy coastal zone will be a good nursery or breeding ground for fish, and sustainable fishing will be very much depend on the fishing, on the health of the coastal zones. However, much of the coastal ecosystem are affected by a lot of disturbance, including deforestation. So protection and restoration of this ecosystem are very crucial. In Papua is the stronghold, the remaining mangrove in Indonesia. 50% of Indonesian mangrove is there. Sea level rise is there, and it is very important to protect mangrove in order to cope with sea level rise, which is about 2 millimeters a year, and the presence of protected mangrove can keep up with this because the accumulation of sediment can be about 4 to 6 millimeters a year. So having this particular ecosystem in that situation is very important. So with that, I would like to leave with the conference, and the take-home message really is that OOC is the place where blue carbon can be promoted. So we will hear the progress in Norway next year. And hopefully we can also hear how blue carbon can be part of the Paris Agreement in each countries in the national determined contribution. Thank you. So I'm supposed to lead this session. Our next speaker will be His Excellency, Minister of Agriculture, Food and Marine of Ireland, Michael Creed, who is going to show videos to us as well. But first of all, he would like to give some introduction about the work in Ireland. His Excellency.
Thank you very much, Mr. Chairman, Your Serene Highness, distinguished colleagues. I'd like to thank our hosts for the opportunity to address this unique gathering here today. And on behalf of the Irish government and the Irish people, I wish to express our deepest sympathy to the people of Indonesia, especially to those who have lost families and friends in the recent earthquake and indeed in today's air disaster. The recent publication of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change's special report on global warming of 1.5 degrees centigrade has unequivocally confirmed that we are already seeing the negative impacts of climate change, and Ireland acknowledges that it has a lot of challenges ahead. Just recently, our Taoiseach, Leo Varadkar, repeated that climate action is a top priority of our government. And to address this, our National Mitigation Plan and National Adaptation Framework are being supported to the tune of €22 billion between 2018 and 2027. Sound research must underpin any climate action we undertake, and I'm pleased to announce that in order to enhance Ireland's research capabilities, I am today committing 25 million in funding towards the replacement of the 21-year-old research vessel Celtic Voyager with a new 50-metre modern research vessel that will provide critical national infrastructure to enable Ireland to address the considerable challenges of sustainable fisheries as well as climate-induced impacts on our oceans. This vessel will support the work of the Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance, AORA, the cooperative research body between the European Union, the United States and Canada, established in 2013, and I would like to present the work of AORA in this short video.
One frontier left, possibly the last. She is vast, mysterious, unknown. But she is also full of wonder. From within her depths, she feeds, gives life, provides refuge. She is a home, a place to do business, and a place to play. While her fury can topple kingdoms, her power can also change the world. And her secrets, her very DNA, well, they hold the keys to fueling, feeding, and healing a better, bluer world. When we unlock the secrets of the Atlantic Ocean, we unlock a greater future. But it can't be done without cooperation. We are the European Union, Canada, and the United States of America. We are the Atlantic Ocean Research Alliance. Together, we are embracing the mystery of our ocean, harnessing her power for good so that future generations can reap the immense benefits. Through Horizon 2020, for the first time, over 500 scientific teams are engaged in Atlantic Ocean research. Mountain ranges and underwater volcanoes have been discovered the world never knew existed. An integrated ocean observing system is being developed that will give countries advanced warning of major flooding and storm risks. And we are learning how to sustainably manage the Atlantic's rich resources so we can feed our people and the people of generations to come. But the ocean is not without limit, and neither are we. If we lose momentum, the window of opportunity for some of the greatest progress humankind has ever seen could be lost. Join us, so that together we can continue the last great exploration campaign on Earth. Together, we can become the generation of sustainability. And together, if we act now, we can secure a new blue economy that safeguards the Atlantic and our planet's future.
Ireland has identified the critical role to be played by local authorities in addressing climate change adaptation, and I'm pleased to announce that Ireland has committed to providing €10 million to the local authority sector in Ireland to aid in the establishment of 4 climate action regional offices. This commitment recognises the significant obligation which has been placed on local government to develop and implement its own climate action measures, as well as the need to build capacity within the sector to engage effectively with climate change, both in terms of mitigation and adaptation. While government has a leadership role in addressing climate-related impacts, we also recognise that we don't have a monopoly on the solutions for the societal transformation required to become a low-carbon and climate-resilient society. As such, another of our commitments here today is to provide €1 million over a 5-year period from 2019 to 2024 towards a new programme of ocean and climate research in an Irish higher education institution. In 2019, Ireland's annual Harnessing Our Ocean Wealth Summit will allow countries to share their stories and experiences in addressing environmental, economic and social opportunities to create sustainable ocean economies. It is encouraging and inspiring to be part of such a diverse gathering of stakeholders, sea champions, scholars, policy makers, NGOs and public representatives here today. Ireland is determined to make a contribution to global efforts to respond to the climate and marine challenges that we face together. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Your Excellencies. Now we are having Lord Tariq Ahmad of Wimbledon, who is going to tell us about his work. When I read this CV, he's mainly working in the banking and financing issues, but perhaps today we will hear from Minister of State of the Commonwealth and the UN at the Foreign and Commonwealth Office differently. I do not know. Lord Ahmad.
Mr. Chairman, Your Serene Highness, Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, good afternoon to you all. May I firstly say how delighted I am to be representing Her Majesty's Government, the United Kingdom, here today, and may I firstly congratulate our gracious host, Indonesia, for putting together such an impressive event. The nature of it becomes even more impressive, where I join with my colleague from Ireland in standing in solidarity with this great nation in the aftermath of the tragedy of Lombok and Sulawesi, and indeed the tragic events that we saw unfold in Jakarta today with the air crash. We stand united from this conference, I'm sure I speak for everyone, in prayers and thoughts and condolences with all the victims of these tragedies. Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, the United Kingdom is an island nation with a proud maritime history, a nation blessed with overseas territories, surrounded by some of the richest marine habitats across the world, and a nation responsible for 2% of the world's coral reefs. The UK was therefore deeply concerned by the recent special report by the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change. Specifically on oceans, the panel predicted that even if temperatures rise were limited to just 1.5%, 70%, ladies and gentlemen, 70% of coral reefs would disappear altogether. With a 2% rise, virtually all would be lost. This is no distant threat that can be put off and dealt with later. Carbon emissions are already having a damaging effect on our oceans, with associated impacts on marine ecosystems and the people whose livelihoods depend on them. If we are truly to succeed in limiting further damage by keeping the global temperature rise to below 1.5%, we need quick and effective global action, not tomorrow, but today. We need that action now to support a move to low carbon economies. And where we are already too late to prevent climate change, we need to take action together to mitigate against its worst impacts. At the forthcoming climate negotiations in Poland, we must all commit to immediate, ambitious and concrete action, building on the commitments made in Paris 3 years ago. And let me outline some of our commitments from the UK. The UK's commitment to the Paris Agreement and to tackling global climate change remains steadfast. We are investing in programs and partnerships to that end. We are proud to be the 4th largest contributor to the Global Environmental Facility and have now committed to providing £250 million over the next 4 years, focusing in particular on the pressures on the marine environment in international waters. We have also committed a further £26.5 million to the Commonwealth Marine Economies Programme to support sustainable economic growth in the most vulnerable small island developing states, including through better management of their maritime resources. We are also providing £22 million to the Natural Environment Research Council over the next 5 years to investigate the impacts of climate change and human activity in the Atlantic Ocean from surface to seabed. We are also continuing to invest in the Global Ocean Acidification Observation Network, which collates ocean acidification monitoring information and delivers training in areas lacking capability. And I'm pleased to formally announce here today that the UK recently joined the International Partnership for Blue Carbon to help improve understanding of the importance to climate science of the carbon stored in our seas and coastal ecosystems. Finally, we are also sharing our scientific know-how and carbon transition expertise with partner countries all over the world, including right here in Indonesia. We are working with Indonesia to protect its 2.9 million hectares of mangrove forest and to reduce the amount of plastic waste that enters its waters. We are planning to establish 2 new microplastics monitoring laboratories here early next year. And I should like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Indonesian government on the recent launch of their low carbon development initiative. To conclude, the threat of climate change is here and now. It is real, it is pressing. The UK, together with other countries, is taking actions, and we will be a committed partner to all those countries and organizations determined to do the same. And I join with others to say this: let us come together, let us work together, urgently and most effectively, to prevent further harm to our oceans. And let us together preserve our precious marine environment for today, for tomorrow, and for future generations to come. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lord Ahmad. We hear some commitments, country by country committed themselves to protect and restore marine ecosystem and also coastal ecosystem. All these things will need information. So the next speaker, Dr. Yoshihisa Shirayama, will be telling us about the use of remote sensing and data in planning and policy making processes.
Thank you very much, Excellencies. It's my great honor to introduce the activities of JAMSTEC to the participants here. JAMSTEC is a national research and development agency for marine earth science in Japan, and Japanese government is committed us about 50 billion Japanese yen per year for enhancing the researches here. And our vision is an integrated understanding of the ocean, earth, and life. And about 1/3 of these budget are used for the understanding of the environmental change of the oceans. We are operating the world's longest research vessels, Mirai. We are operating one of the most fast supercomputer Earth simulators for understanding the change of the climate in these regions. Oops. Hello. So our most important part is observation of the ocean, and we are spending about $6 million US dollars per year for these activities. There are 3 major activities. One is the Argo float activities. With the international colleagues, we are now operating around 4,000 robots floating in the oceans and providing us a change of the climate or ocean states to all over the world. It is almost semi-real time. The second is shipboard observation. We are carrying this kind of shipboard observation throughout the world too, and we can measure the change of the temperature of the deep sea. The most recent accomplishment is we found about 0.1 degrees Celsius rise of the seawater temperature at 4,000 meters depth in the Southern Ocean. So such kind of very precise measurement can be done using these research vessels. The third one is buoy. That will also give us simultaneous information about the ocean state. And JAMSTEC is operating the Western Pacific and Indian Ocean buoys, and one of them was provided to Indonesia as a capacity building, and we introduced all the technologies for building these buoys. So through these activities, observation can contribute to environmental change and future environmental prediction, and all contribute to the SDG 14s. The second is topics I'd like to introduce is Year of Maritime Continent. We are committed about $2 million for this. Maritime continent is the areas around Indonesia connecting Indian Ocean and the Western Pacific. And we are now carrying out two different activities here. One is NICAM, which is on a very fine scale simulators, and we can find the Martin-Julian oscillation in the Indian Ocean and predict where it comes. And then we send our research vessel to that area and measure such kind of Martin-Julian oscillations through these activities. Such research can proceed understanding about the impact of maritime continent on global climate, as well as a variability of local scales. And that will contribute not only SDG 14, but 13, as well as the hazardous predictions. The third is ocean acidification. It's a heavy matter for Japanese peoples because most of the delicacy of the sushi comes from the marine calcifiers. But to understand it in the quantitative manner, we devised a microexclusivity method to measure the thickness of the test of the marine plankton and found that even right now, the impact of ocean acidification can be observed in the northern part of the world. So it is not only the part of coral reef, the issue of coral reef, but it's an entire global problems, and such a robust scientific evidence about the impact of ocean acidification will strongly support the mitigation effort for carbon dioxide emission, because ocean acidification can occur even though global warming do not occur. The last thing I'd like to introduce is an infection disease early warning system, which is carried out in collaboration with South Africa. As you know, if the flood happens, the mosquito explosion happens, and that will make a lot of diseases such kinds as malaria. So we develop models which will predict the flooding happens in the South African areas based on the observation of the oceans. And this early warning system is now very effectively operating and reduce the number of people suffering from infection disease. So the ocean observation is not only contribute to the ocean science, but also the human well-being too. Thank you for your kind attention. Terima kasih.
Thank you very much, Dr. Yoshihisa. Our next speaker is Mr. Jose Maria Figueres, who is the former president of Costa Rica. He is now a chair of the Ocean Unite. That's what he is trying to explain to us, what Ocean Unite is doing.
Thank you. Assalamu alaikum. Your Serene Highness, thank you, sir, for your leadership. A special word of gratitude to Minister Heraldo Muñoz of Chile and to Secretary John Kerry of the United States for having initiated our ocean conferences. Those were the days when the United States had a White House, not a dark house, as they have now, when somebody pulled the plug. So climate change and the ocean are two sides of the same coin. We cannot successfully tackle one without tackling the other. The hour of reckoning is rapidly approaching, and we must rapidly lead a courageous change of course for both climate change and the ocean. Both challenges require us to think big, be bold, and plunge forward doing the most, not the least. The recent IPCC report calls on us to redouble our efforts, get off the present trajectory leading to a world between 3 and 4 degrees centigrade warmer, to adopt a course that would take us to a world that would not surpass 1.5 degrees centigrade. Doing so would unleash the most important economic opportunity of our lives as we reinvent energy, transportation, the way we live, and create new business models by combining innovative technologies with capital flows. Common sense would have us do that. After all, why should we not if our own existence on the planet is at stake? With respect to the effects of climate change on the ocean, the IPCC report states, and I quote, "Limiting global warming to 1.5 degrees centigrade is projected to reduce biodiversity, fisheries, and ecosystems, and their functions and services to humans, as illustrated by recent changes to Arctic sea ice and warm water coral reef ecosystems." But it also points out the challenges of reducing carbon emissions to fall within the 1.5 degree increase. One way in which we can accomplish this is by being bold in the establishment of marine protected areas. Their capacity to restore the ocean's health has been proven time and again. Allow me, therefore, to share 2 concrete actions we can take. As we gather here today, CAMLAR meets in Hobart, Australia. Aside from the fact that 24 nations and the European Union are deciding the future of Antarctica, which belongs to humanity, these 25 members have deliberated for years on the creation of a few additional marine protected areas. Perhaps that was admissible in normal times. No longer. In the world of today, why not build on the legacy of the Ross Sea Marine Protected Area, declared 2 years ago with 1.5 million square kilometers, and celebrate the 200 years of the discovery of Antarctica by turning the table? Yes, turning the table. Instead of having CAMLAR's scientific committee study each suggested marine protected area, declare the entire ocean around Antarctica a marine protected area, except for those parts that the scientific committee would wish to exclude. Today, we are called upon to do bigger and better in CAMLAR than ever before. A second example. Back in the midst of 2014, the Global Ocean Commission rendered its report entitled "From Decline to Recovery, a Rescue Package for the Global Ocean." Recommendation 8 called for the high seas to be a regeneration zone. Protecting the high seas would have a huge environmental impact, a small economic cost, and a large economic benefit. No more than 10 countries fish in it due to subsidies to the deprivation and detriment of 140 nations with EEZs. Ladies and gentlemen, we have no time to lose. The science is compelling and the math is clear. We know what we need to do. 2020 would be the year in which the first deliverables under SDG 14 are due. It could be a great year for the ocean. The ocean is our planet's insurance policy. The premium is low, the return on investment high. Higher for our future and the planet, even higher for those we love and we care about. I think of my 2-year-old grandson, Jose Maria, and I am determined to leave him a better world in which we live more meaningful lives. Muchísimas gracias.
Our next speaker is Ed Heffernan, who is the Managing Director of AXA XL. You may know this is an insurance company, and insurance sector will play a very important role in the climate change issues, and he's going to tell us all about AXA. Thank you.
Your Serene Highness, Your Excellencies, ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of AXA-XL, I'd like to extend my special thanks to the government of Indonesia for the invitation to address this conference on ocean risk. In 2017, AXA-XL launched its Ocean Risk Initiative to better understand the impacts of change to our oceans, generate debate, and identify solutions. We seek to identify risks and build better resilience in areas and communities that need it most. There are 3 pillars to our Ocean Risk Initiative that we will implement in 2019 with a commitment of over $1 million. 1, lead the insurance industry's proactive response to ocean risk. 2, develop AXA-XL bespoke ocean-related projects and programs. And 3, increase ocean literacy. In May of this year, alongside our partners, including Ocean Unite, IUCN, the Bermuda Institute of Ocean Sciences, and Orem, we convened the first Ocean Risk Summit, which brought together leaders from the insurance and finance industry, alongside multilaterals, scientists, and the not-for-profit sector to identify ways in which the insurance industry can help find solutions to mitigate ocean-related risks. An obvious example is the ferocity and devastation wrought by last year's hurricane season in the Caribbean and the typhoons and hurricanes again this year. By identifying the threat and pricing the risk, the insurance and finance industries have a key role to play in building resilience for the communities whose livelihoods may be irrevocably impacted through no fault of their own. One of the key focuses at the summit was the use of natural capital, such as mangroves, coral reefs, salt marshes, and seagrass beds, being integrated into resilience planning. These, alongside traditional gray infrastructure, can be seen as a critical stepping stone to disaster risk management and climate adaptation in small island developing states and countries which may have less ability to fund relief and recovery efforts. As the risk landscape changes, so the insurance industry needs to change. Recently, the industry has created the first parametric insurance cover for the loss of a coral reef off the coast of Mexico, and I tip my hat to competitors at Swiss Re that trailblazed that effort. There are also other alternative financial mechanisms such as catastrophe bonds, resilience bonds, blue and green bonds, and we also provide some of the capacity for the risk pools in the Caribbean, Pacific, and Africa. In addition, AXA-XL pursues several of our own unique projects and programs to address ocean risk. For instance, AXA-XL is working with the Nature Conservancy on developing blue carbon resilience credits, which will, for the first time, assign a market value to the resilience services provided by critical ocean habitat like mangroves and salt marshes, as well as providing a carbon value. We are also leading the development of an ocean risk index to quantify the fiscal impact of the combined degradation of marine ecosystems and storm surge enhanced by sea level rise. Further, we are very proud to work with the Stimson Center to explore, understand, and identify developing country coastal vulnerabilities from the links between IUU fishing, climate change, resource scarcity, and security. With an initial focus on the Caribbean and Southeast Asia, the Stimson Center's Environmental Security Program will conduct research to identify the geographic hotspots most vulnerable to instability and insecurity, and develop threat maps and models to help governments and businesses predict, mitigate, and manage these risks. Our last key pillar to addressing ocean risk is to promote and increase ocean literacy. We've undertaken scientific expeditions to the Arctic, to coral reefs, and to the deep ocean to better understand the nature of our changing world. Our science partners on these expeditions have so far published 33 scientific papers with 40 more under review, created 5 PhDs, and trained 9 postdoctoral fellows. Recently, we commenced funding of ocean risk scholarships for innovative PhD projects, which make a demonstrable research connection between ocean change and the implications for the future risk landscape. Lastly, the Oceans Education Program was launched in 2011 to leverage the results of these scientific expeditions in order to create a curriculum-led education plan to reach nearly 4 million children across 96 countries with an ultimate aim to reach 10 million children by the end of 2020. To put in perspective, as little as 26% of overall economic losses caused by natural disasters worldwide during 2016 were covered by insurance. But according to Lloyd's of London industry report, for every 1% increase in insurance penetration, the disaster recovery burden is reduced by 22%. This last picture is from the aftermath of Hurricane Michael in the Florida Panhandle in the US a few weeks ago. As you can see, one homeowner who lived on the beachfront of Mexico Beach, Florida, understood resilience and invested wisely. County building code there only required measures to guard against 120 to 150 mile per hour wind. The highest industry standard was for 175 mile per hour wind. This owner built his home to guard against 250 mile per hour wind. This picture speaks volumes about why insurers have an obligation and an opportunity to better understand ocean risk and promote resilience. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ed. In the next few minutes, we will be listening video messages and announcement given by Michael Bloomberg, the former mayor of New York City, but also UN Special Envoy for Climate Action. Also from Ray Dalio, who is the president of Dalio Philanthropies and founder of OceanX. Are we ready for the video?
Hello, Valley. Mike and I are honored to be part of this year's Our Oceans Conference and thankful to the Republic of Indonesia for hosting this year's event.
We know that you share our passion for the oceans, so we are pleased to share with you our new partnership for protecting them.
It's important to explore the ocean because it's more than twice the size of the world that we know. It's so essential to our weather, to our health.
3 billion people depend on the oceans for their food and livelihoods.
That's why we're on a shared mission to explore the ocean and bring it back to the world.
Over the next several years, Bloomberg Philanthropies and OceanX will be working together on new initiatives around the world.
Mike and I saw a great opportunity to explore the Northeast Canyons and seamounts, which together make up the first U.S. Marine National Monument in the Atlantic. And we saw that as a way of kicking off our partnership.
Off the coast of the northeastern United States, carved out of the continental shelf, these massive underwater canyons contain large, diverse ecosystems, each one brimming with scientific discoveries, including species previously unknown to science. The OceanX Bloomberg mission documented new patterns of species diversity. They'll play an important role in our strategies to educate and inspire people to protect these spectacular and critical ecosystems. This kind of work to document, preserve, and safeguard marine environments has never been more crucial. Our oceans are being damaged by pollution, oil and gas exploration, destructive fishing practices, and increasingly, climate change. All of which are killing these habitats before we've even had the time to appreciate what's at stake. Our oceans hold the answers to so many of our most pressing questions, yet less than 5% of them have been explored. They're a finite resource, so we need to do whatever we can to stop the impacts of climate change and defend against urgent ocean threats to ensure they don't vanish forever.
By starting in our own backyard, we hope to inspire Americans and others around the world as they conserve their own national waters.
I'm thrilled to be on this shared mission to explore the ocean and then to bring it back so that everybody can see it.
That's why Ray and I are glad to be committing over $185 million over the next 4 years to explore critical marine areas, share their stories with the world, and work with partners to protect ocean resources around the globe.
Everybody should see this and get excited about the ocean. And then I think if we do, we're going to love it a lot more and take better care of it.
again, another hundreds of million, I lost count since this morning, how many millions of US dollar will be invested for the protection and restoration of marine ecosystem. Ladies and gentlemen, before we continue our session, His Serene Highness Prince Albert II will give short remarks about this session, and perhaps you will have time for question and answers.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you very much, all our panelists for their statements and their presentations. I think it was extremely valuable and extremely enriching, and really, I commend you on that. As I first mentioned at the start, I think it is absolutely necessary for us to include the oceans in all our reflections and all our discussions about climate change, of course. That I'm preaching to the convinced, but I think we have to spread that word to other fora. In doing so, we should regard the ocean, I think, as a victim of climate change, but at the same time as the solution to mitigate and fight climate change. The second, I think, is the need, if we are to succeed in bringing about change, to use sound knowledge as our basis. This is the reason why we must continue to support scientific research and the scientists, and that's why also the Japanese initiative is very commendable, and I thank you for that. But also what we've just heard from Mr. Bloomberg and Mr. Dalio, and that wonderful new initiative. Because we need better understanding. We clearly need more scientific data and scientific knowledge to better understand the different mechanisms at work, and to also to have a better view of a lot of species that we don't know much about, or that we don't know at all. That's what also my foundation has been trying to do in different areas. But we have, more specifically towards climate change, we have led a project with the IPCC to produce a special report devoted to the oceans and the cryosphere. And that report and the conclusion of these findings in this report will be announced by the IPCC next September in Monaco. And of course, I hope that most of you will be able to attend that. They will, I believe, enable us to see these things more clearly and to better prepare for our actions. Finally, and this is the third point, I think, of these concluding remarks, I'd like to stress the need to address these aspects using a combined economical and political approach. The ocean's resources are incalculable, and their exploitation is inexorable. These riches are the root cause of many of the troubles being experienced by our oceans, and are no doubt in part of the cause of global warming due of course to the example of the growing number of offshore oil and gas operations. Nevertheless, they can and must be put at the heart of our future common strategy to tackle the effects of global warming, for example, through developing renewable marine energies. And this is a fight that can only be waged, and one if we act collectively. In other words, if we pool our resources, as has been said before by most of you, including all our active forces, and if we give our backing to the opportunities of blue growth. It is this collective imperative that we must that I think we must try to take away from our discussions, because if an action, we need different calls for action, because if we continue in the same way, well, we've seen that it will cost us, it will cost not only insurance companies, but at large, the bill will be incredibly huge. And so we have to start implementing solutions and finding new ways to mitigate the effects of climate change. So thank you once again for these discussions and for your valuable input. And I thank you, and I terima kasih, and I turn it back to our moderator. Thank you very much.